We have more business inspiration for you on this Business Wednesday. I recently had the opportunity to speak with Jordan Carroll. Let's take a look. Welcome back. Right now I am with Jordan Carroll. He is the remote job coach. He is joining us from Mexico. Jordan, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's fun to be able to see you. All a little jealous that you're down in Mexico. It sounds like a lovely place, but that's not what we're talking about. We are going to talk about remote jobs, specifically the mistakes that people make when applying for these remote jobs. So I'm looking forward to talking about this. What kind of mistakes are people making?
And just to give you some preface to the situation, I think a lot of people right now are in positions that they need a remote job, right? So we've been put into this position because of COVID, and people that previously maybe didn't think that they needed to work remotely or didn't know how to work remotely are now being thrust into this position of somewhat desperation to find something remote. And there's a lot of mistakes I see in that, and some of these are going to be things that apply to both remote positions and non-remote positions. But what I see from a lot of people who go into this is that first and foremost, they don't necessarily have an online personal brand, or they have, a digital footprint that shows their expertise. When we talk about remote positions, really the only thing that a lot of these companies have to go off of is your online presence. When you think about how jobs maybe used to be, is you go to a career fair, you get to meet people in person, and you get to let some of your charisma take over, and that can sometimes be the thing that wins people over. You're handing out your resumes and your business cards in person, but now it's solely online. So you, one, need to have your professional expertise online. A lot of that is done through LinkedIn. So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, or it's not optimized, or it's not updated, that is certainly one of the things you need to do right away. Another big thing I see is that people say that they'll do any remote job. I'll do anything, right? Just as long as it's work from home or remote. And the problem with that is that because it's too generalized, these companies don't know how it is that you're going to be of value to them. So you need to frame your messaging about the company's needs, not your own needs. And you need to do it in a very targeted way. So whenever you are a jack of all trades and you can do everything, essentially you can do nothing. So being very targeted would be number two. A lot of people also focus on quantity over quality. They'll spend their time, and this seems productive to apply to 50, 100 jobs, but it's not. You need to be very targeted, and I recommend targeting companies that are already remote and have been remote first. And what I mean by saying remote first is that there are a lot of companies out there that have intentionally built their company remote. They didn't just go remote because of COVID. So find those companies online. We Work Remotely is a great place to do that. LinkedIn is a great place to do that. Remotive.com is also a great place to do that. And there's a bunch of different, remote job boards and places to find companies that are remote first. You're not going to convince a company to let you go remote if they're not a remote company. So start with them. And then in addition to that, I see people not really having a strategy, right? Just kind of going through this. One day you may be applying to jobs, another day you may be looking for jobs, and you're just kind of all over the place. So that's one of the things that I help people with, is actually creating a strategy. And I've got a lot of free resources online about how to create a strategy, but it starts with organizing your search, making sure that you're knowing the types of activities that you need to do every day, targeting those companies, and then also having a unique application. Now, a lot of people will send in a resume or send in an application and wait for a response. That's not the way to do it. You have to get your resume in the hands of a decision maker, of a hiring manager, or to someone that can sponsor you within the organization. And a lot of the times that comes from people that you may know that know somebody in the actual company. So networking is a huge key, and knowing how to network online is really the best way to get a remote job. So those would be some of the things that I think are the mistakes, and then some of the solutions to those mistakes.
Looking for a job can be very overwhelming. There's a lot that needs to be done. It also can be an emotional process. I'm curious, when you're working on your online profile, your digital footprint, that can also feel a bit overwhelming as you want to make sure your LinkedIn is looking good, your website. Any tips on how to make that work?
start small, right? Start by just commenting on LinkedIn posts that you're interested in, or that the company is putting out, or that people in that company are putting out. And then that gives you a way to also contact those people. And if you just start with commenting, it's not this big, huge mountain of, oh, I need to make this huge personal brand and do all these things. No, it's you just need to be visible, right? Because when a company searches you, which they will inevitably do, what are they going to find? And if they find a trail of very thoughtful comments, and when I say comment, this is something where you need to be actually providing some value to people. You need to be thoughtful. You need to be targeted in where you're commenting, because you could just spend, all day commenting, and it wouldn't get you anywhere. So targeted comments are a great way to start. Then you can start sharing articles, and providing your own perspective, and work your way up to creating your own original content. And when you start to get to that level, what you can do is you can take the job listings that would be fit for you, and you can pick out different requirements in those job listings, and you can create videos about those or blogs about those, and just things that show off your expertise in that particular niche.
Now, you mentioned that you have resources available online. Where can we find your resources, and tell me a little bit more about them?
Yeah, so it's theremotejobcoach.com, theremotejobcoach.com. Perfect, you got it there. That's amazing. And I have quite a few different resources there. There's a quiz that you can take right on the homepage to kind of point you in the right direction of what article might be the best for you to start with. Whether you're just starting at the beginning of this remote job search, whether you've been searching for a while, you're not getting responses, whether you've had interviews but you're not moving on in the process. There's so many different parts where people are along, and I think one of the biggest things you need to do to start is be able to diagnose what the issue is. And that's really what I help people do, because one of the most discouraging things that can happen in a job search is that you don't even know what's wrong. So you don't even know what to fix. So I have a quiz on there. I have an online web training. I've got a group you can join that's totally free, and a bunch of other resources and articles and things like that.
We just dove right into your expertise and your advice. I'd love to hear a little more about your background and how you became the remote job coach.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I worked so like I'm from California in the Bay Area, and I worked in corporate actually first. And my first corporate job out of college was on the worst of days, 3 hours round trip was my commute. And I quickly realized like this was something that was very frustrating to me. It didn't allow me to do the things that I wanted to do in my life, not only from a professional perspective, from a personal perspective. And the turning point that I had was when I negotiated my work to be remote, and I just started 1 day a week. So if you're currently thinking about going back into the office, or you kind of have to go back into the office, and you've had some of the taste of remote work, it's something that I couldn't get out of my mouth, right? I was like, I need to make this a regular thing in my life. Consider pitching, just 1 day a week, 2 days a week, or some sort of pilot that can get you back to working from home or working remote. And that's what I did. And really, I initially used it as something where I would just wake up later, right? And it was kind of a buffer for maybe a hangover or something. But then over time, I realized like I could be more productive, I could be healthier, I could build things into my schedule. And I don't say this lightly, but I think remote work saved my life, because I had some severe depression and anxiety and substance abuse issues that I was able to really confront because I had the freedom and flexibility of remote work. And I could really kind of dive into what is the lifestyle I want to build and allow myself to do that. So I eventually became remote with that company. And then ever since then, with three other companies that I worked with, and then my own businesses as I've, done some traveling to about 15 countries in the past few years.
Well, Jordan, it's been a pleasure meeting you, learning more about you, and getting this great advice about applying for remote jobs. One more time, where can we get more information and follow you?
Jobcoach.com is going to be your best bet for that information.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us here on Park State Television, Jordan. Hope you have a great day. And again, we appreciate your incredible advice.
And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
We'll be back with more right after this.